For most of my life, I've been obese. In 2019, I was 125 kilos, and when I was growing up as a teenager, my uncle used to call me his bodyguard whenever I used to see him because I was so big. In the last 7 years, I have transformed my life. I lost 50 kilos and I'm a completely different person now. And so in this video, I want to share with you how you can transform your life incredibly quickly. Let's get into it. The first thing that we need to understand is that diets don't work. The fat loss industry is completely fucked. And the reason for this is because in the 1980s, there were lots of bodybuilders around which popularized this philosophy of cutting and bulking. And if you don't know, cutting is where you go through a period of time where you lose weight, and then bulking is a period of time where you gain weight. And you go through these cycles in order to improve your physique. And so you bulk for 6 months to gain muscle, and in that process, you do end up gaining some fat, and then you go through a cutting cycle to lose fat and reveal the muscle that you've gained. And so what happens is, because PTs and online coaches and fitness influencers are followers of bodybuilders, they don't really think about this philosophy in depth, and they just say, okay, this seems like a good methodology to build a good physique, and so let me just apply it and share content on it. But they don't realize that the people that are overweight, that are listening to their advice, like I was, are actually not in the same position as the bodybuilders, and so they don't need the same approach. And let me share with you an example that makes this more clear. Imagine you're an 18-year-old and you're like, it's time I better learn how to cook. I'm going to university, I'm going to be cooking myself, I better go and learn. Now, if I was 18 years old and I was learning how to cook, would I go to some Michelin star restaurant kitchen and with all their different venison ingredients and caviar and random seasonings and spices and random types of cookers and fryers to learn how to cook? Or would I just cook in my home kitchen where I have the exact same utensils that I'm going to have at university? Good question. I think and hope the answer for you is that you would just learn to cook at home, because that will teach you how you are going to be able to cook at university. And so when people look at bodybuilders and they learn how to lose weight, they're basically going to this Michelin star kitchen and learning how to cook in that kitchen and applying it to their own life, which is just the home kitchen or the university kitchen, where, you know what, they have to actually socialize and they have to go to work. And these limited periods of cutting for someone that is really overweight is not the right method, because what it suggests is that you can go on a 16-week cut and basically change your life as a result of that and get into the desired condition that you want. But what they don't realize is that bodybuilders that go on these cutting cycles, they will cut out everything from their life. They will not go out to eat, they will not socialize. This is their job, by the way. They don't have other jobs. And so this is why there's like random YouTube, like TikTok shorts about, oh, I'll just have fish and a rice cake, or whatever that thing is that was quite popular at the time. Is because they eat these silly foods. Maybe it's not silly for them, they need to get their macros right, and it stresses them out if they don't get their macros right. But someone that's 100 kilos, someone that's obese, someone that's pretty overweight, like I was, doesn't need that approach. What we need to do is learn how to build habits in our life that actually serve the person that we want to be, and break down the habits that don't serve us. Because the fact of the matter is, the reason why that we are not where we want to be, have the body that we have, is not as a result of us not going on a diet early on in our lives. It's because we've built up behavior patterns that don't serve us. And as I was growing up, when I was younger, what I realized for me was that I ate when I was bored. And as I get older, it became part of my identity. I used to identify with being this foodie, someone that loves going out to eat, and food became this kind of entertainment source, right? And so that behavior pattern of using food for this comfort didn't serve me, and I had to break that down in order to become the new person I wanted to be. And a short-term diet, which I did many times, didn't do that. It didn't actually teach me that I needed to rewire my brain in order to use food for fuel instead of comfort. And that's a bar, write it down. But like, the problem with the diet mentality is that it suggests that you can go on a diet, lose the weight, get the result that you want, and then go back to eating in the same way that you were eating. But that those habits are the reason why you're overweight and you're in the place where you were before. So hopefully you can agree that this cutting, this dieting, whatever you want to call it, is not worthy. But if you want some data on the fact, I'm a data scientist, but if you want some data on this idea, 95% of dieters that lose weight end up regaining it. And so clearly there's an issue here that these rigid diets, these low-calorie diets, these keto diets, these carnivore diets, whatever diet that you've been on, low sugar, healthy eating, juice diet, grape diet, there's so many diets that I've heard, whatever diet that you've gone on is not actually the solution to the problem, because we are thinking that the solution is some short-term period in order to get the weight off, but actually we just need to break down bad habits and build good habits. There are patterns in your life that don't serve you at the moment, and you've recognized that, which is a great first step. And all we need to do is rewire our brains so that we build patterns that do serve us. And by the way, there is a big point here that although bodybuilders, they do get into really good shape and they step on stage and they're all oiled up and they're in like stupidly lean condition, they are quite sad and lonely because they cut out all the fun things in life. And so, yes, you might lose weight if you restrict calories and you don't go out and you do all these things that you enjoy. Look, you might see loads of progress in your weight loss, but do you know what will also happen? You're probably going to get quite sad and you're going to be quite miserable. And at the end of that period, you're going to binge back up and gain back all the weight that you lost, because it happened to me and it happens to countless number of other people. Because of the fact that you deprive yourself so much, you make yourself miserable. And this doesn't even happen just for normal people. It actually happens for the bodybuilders as well. There's so many bodybuilders with massive mental health issues, right? And we should learn from not just the picture of them being able to lose weight, but the picture of everything else going on in their life, so that we can apply some of the lessons, which I'm going to share in a minute, to our lives, but not all of them, so that we feel so miserable. Okay, so now we understand that we need to change our behavior in order to lose weight. It's not about going on a short-term diet. And so if it's just about breaking down bad habits and building up good habits, we want to do that quickly. And so I want to explain what breaking down bad habits and building good habits actually looks like in practice, because that's a very abstract term, right? Like, what is a habit? I want to make it tangible for you so that you can actually go away and apply the things that I'm saying in your life. But the way that it's going to feel is, imagine you're a Windows user. I've got my laptop here, and imagine you're a Windows user. I'm a Windows user at the moment, and then imagine I had to go over to a Mac. And on Windows user, there's an @ symbol, and it is just above the pause button or like the up button on the right of the keyboard. But I know that on a Mac, the @ button, which is the squiggly like email @ thing, is on the number 2. And so I instinctively, when I want to press, my brain says I want to use @ when I want to write my email down, I instinctively will press that button without really thinking about it. And you'll find other buttons on the keyboard which you feel the same way about. All of them probably. If I were to move to Mac, I would probably press the @ button where it is on the Windows keyboard and make a mistake. And that's because I have to go through this period of change, which is painful. And so when you have these habits around food, when you have these unconscious decisions around not exercising or whatever you do, whether it's not going for that walk or eating the snack at 4 p.m. or after dinner having that sweet treat that you know that you maybe don't need to be having, that's when we have to switch operating systems, and we need to become more conscious around these decisions and become aware of them so that we can make the changes. And it's like when you learn to drive a car. When you learn to drive a car, you sit inside the car. I had a driving instructor and I was pretty slow to learn to drive, to be honest. But you sit inside and you try to clutch up, and that's if you learn manual and you don't go for the easy automatic method. But you lift the clutch up, and when you lift the clutch up, it's very difficult to find the biting point, and then you have to think about moving the gears and you have to steer, and the driving instructor has his own pedals because you probably forget to brake or accelerate, and there's a lot of like difficulties that occur when you're learning to drive. At least for me there was, and it took me like 4 times to pass because I wasn't that good. But the point here is that at the beginning it requires a lot of conscious effort, but eventually after practicing lots of times, it ends up becoming something that you can do on autopilot. And so if you drive now and you've been driving for a while, you can probably drive without really thinking about driving. You just sit in the car and your hands just move, and you're basically doing things over and over again without thinking about it. And it's going to be the exact same thing with your nutrition and building these good habits, where at the beginning, it is going to feel a little bit difficult. It's going to feel a little bit painful. You're going to have to go through this period where you're unlearning some bad habits and you're relearning the good habits, like we said, in order to change the behavior. And that's completely fine. But eventually, you're going to be able to drive on autopilot, and you're going to be able to do all these things and have all these systems in your life where you are eating healthy, where we are losing weight, where you are transforming your body and you're transforming these habits, and you're doing all the great things that make you feel great in the moment on autopilot. But just before that moment, the moment before it gets good, it's going to feel a little bit painful, like when you're driving a car. But going back to the car analogy, and this is what people get wrong about weight loss, by the way. Going back to the car analogy, is people think that in order to learn to get the result faster in weight loss, they have to drive faster. And so they go on these short-term diets, they restrict calories more, they do more cardio because people say eat less, move more, and all this bullshit. But if you were to try and learn to drive faster, if you wanted to learn to drive faster, it wouldn't be actually about driving faster. It's not about stepping on that pedal faster, correct? That's not actually going to make you a better driver faster. You're just going to be stepping on the pedal faster. And it's the exact same with weight loss, where if you wanted to lose weight faster, it's not about stepping on the gas more and doing more cardio and moving more and eating less. It's not at all. But it's about the more days that you can stack up where you have the habits that are of the person that you want to be. The way that you would learn faster how to drive is by doing more practice sessions, correct? So you would stack up more days where you would be driving. And so instead of maybe doing a weekly lesson, you would do a daily lesson. Instead of or you might even do 2-hour lessons. And so you're not driving faster, but you're just driving more. And as a result of driving more, you learn faster and you get better at driving. And it's the exact same thing with weight loss, where in order to learn how to lose weight, it's not about doing more, but it's about having more days where you have the good habits that allow you to lose weight. Because the more days that you can stack up with these good habits is more evidence in your brain that you are someone that shows up for yourself, that you are this new person. And every day that you do that, it becomes easier, it feels effortless, and the sooner that you're going to get to the state where weight loss feels like you're doing it on autopilot, because that's the place that we want to be. And then it's just a game of patience. So then the question is, how do we make that transformation fast? This is where I have something very special for you. It's called the Intentional 30 Protocol, which I think is the best thing that you can do if you're overweight. And it's 30 days, 1 month of complete consistency to eating with intention, moving with intention, and having a lifestyle of intention, which are the 3 pillars of the transformation blueprint. And so you decide what good eating looks like for you, because you know in your soul what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, and no one else can tell you what you should be doing. Now, people can guide you, people can give you information, people can give you advice, but you have to come up with that yourself. And it's the same with movement, and it's the same with your lifestyle. No one can say, I'll go to bed at 8 or go to bed at 9, or no one can say to yourself, drink this much water. Now, they can guide you and say, they can't tell you in absolutes. And so why it's called the Intentional 30 Protocol is because you come up with the plan for yourself, right? And you say, for the next 30 days, I want to eat clean, not have any alcohol. And you can define what eating clean looks like to you. It could be 2 healthy meals a day and 1 meal for fun. And you stick to that for 30 days. And as you stick to it, you build a page in the book of evidence towards the belief that you are someone that shows up for yourself. And it means that you are speeding the transition to someone that shows up for yourself versus someone that doesn't. Because that is the difference between someone that sees success on their journey and someone that doesn't. Because remember, we are just trying to change our identity that aligns with the person that we want to be. And the reason why I stress this idea of building belief in your head so much is because the only way that you can change a belief about who you are is by building evidence. And let me share with you an analogy that actually explains this. So if I put a gun to your head and I said, the sky is red, you wouldn't believe me. Even if I said, you have to believe me and otherwise I'll shoot you. You wouldn't be able to believe me, right? Because you need to see evidence before you believe that the sky is red. You need to see that the sky is red. And so before that you believe that you are someone that shows up for yourself, you need to take action that demonstrates that you show up for yourself. And the quickest way to do that is stacking up as many days as possible where you have kept commitments for yourself. And an example that illustrates this is when you go on Love Island. And Love Island is a show where loads of people go into this villa and they're basically isolated from the outside world, and there's 6 females, 6 males, and basically they all get together and they find relationships. The reason why they build relationships in Love Island villa very quickly, they're in there for 6 weeks, is because they have this like massive amount of contact with each other consistently every single day. And so they're having this contact, they're having this exposure to each other, and it's basically like having 6 dates in the first day. And so if you can stack 30 days of consistency where you have showed up for yourself and you haven't missed a workout, where you have done what you said you were going to do, you have been intentional, which is why I've called it the intentional protocol. You have kept the commitments to yourself. I guarantee at the end of the 30 days, you're going to feel like a complete new person. You're going to feel like a complete new person, which is so beautiful, right? Because in just a month, you can feel like a new person just by keeping these commitments to yourself and committing to 30 days of being consistent and becoming this new person. As a result of becoming the new person, you've transformed your life, because you then have built that belief in your head and everything will feel effortless after that point. And you might relax a little bit afterwards, but you will still have more of a belief towards the person that you want to be. And at that point, fat loss will feel more effortless and you would have transformed internally who you are. And as a result of transforming internally who you are, you transform the external just like magic. And so if you want to go on this journey and join a group of men, overweight men that are looking to transform and be intentional and be committed and build up who they are as a person and build their character, and this transformation will literally flow through to the rest of your life, by the way. This is the reason why it's so powerful, is because when you transform yourself and you transform physically, it means you learn to master yourself. And when you learn to master yourself, you learn to master the universe. And when you learn to master the universe, good things happen. And so if you want to join the group, just click the link in the description. Until next time, remember, become the person that you want to be. Peace.